I'm Natalia Lobach, and this is Change Course. We learn by doing. When we're implementing change, we help people adopt new behaviors. And as humans, of course, we like to stick with what we've always done. And so adopting a new behavior is hard. As I've mentioned before, we humans love homeostasis. Go back to my episode about Heraclitus of Ephesus, which is titled Ebb and Flow. It's from earlier this season. And I talk about homeostasis. I also talk about it in my episode from the week of June 14th. And here I talk about just how much it is part of our nature to maintain homeostasis. This is one of my favorite subjects. This is where resistance comes from. So I talk a lot about systemic resistance, so resistance that is built into the systems that we operate within, systems that are built in order to maintain structure and order and predictability and produce the same results every time the system has an event or something happens. We want the same results being produced. We want consistency. These things are good. But when we need to change, we actually have to disrupt the system. That's where systemic resistance comes from. Resistance from us good old humans comes from, again, homeostasis and our human nature. So, in the next few episodes, we're going to delve into this crazy world of behavioral science. And my goodness, it has been a long time since I have been in this world. But it's interesting how, when I return to this lens, how much of the work that I do now in change is informed by the theories and the practices of behavioral science, especially when it comes to individual change. So one of the changes I often do is implement a new technology or IT system. And it's interesting because this is, again, where, my past comes up to haunt me. And I was speaking with someone who's involved in a community that I'm in, and she was mentioning how at her organization, they had just implemented a new hospital information system. And she was sharing with me her frustration at how difficult it had been over the last week. And so we chatted a bit, and I talked a little bit about how much I understood where she was coming from and how much I understood her pain based on the work that I do. And this is the crux of it. Whenever we implement new technology into an existing system and we change the process and we look at how we can make things more streamlined and efficient, at the end of the day, in order to make the change happen, it requires a change in behavior from the people who are implementing the system. They're implementing the actions within the system. They're the ones who are feeling that change most acutely. And behavioral science and the theories and this, the practice in this area is why you see, or it helps to explain why you see things like behavioral regression, slippage, change regression, all of these things that we talk about, like, oh, they're just going back to do it the old way as soon as we leave. Or, it's just going to regress. They're going to find workarounds to do things the way they've always done them. Of course, that's part of human nature. We should not get angry or upset about this. This is just how we are. We should have understanding because we're all this way. So one of the things that was interesting this week was I had a chance with an organization that I've been working with through a big process change that we had an opportunity where I had been coaching and mentoring a number of individuals within the organization to adopt new behaviors related to a new technology system that new technology that they're implementing. So this requires a different approach to management and a different approach to monitoring, maintaining, running the team, structures within the team in terms of how we meet, how information is shared, how items are determined to be escalated or require help. And so I assisted this team with implementing a strong program management structure as part of the change management for this initiative. So the interesting thing was I had the opportunity over the last 4 days to take some time off. And there was this apprehension around not being there, both from my the team that I'm reporting to, and then also from the team that I'm working with. So there was this apprehension around, well, Natalia isn't going to be there, so how are we going to make sure this all happens? And so what was very beautiful about it was, as I go through the connected change approach and work through building relationships and building trusted partnerships to actually bring about change, demonstrating change, working alongside individuals to actually do the work, and then helping them take on the responsibility of that work and driving that work, we were at the point where I thought we were ready, that we could actually hand it over to the team and that they would be able to do it on their own. And so I stepped back. And one of the most amazing things about the work that I do is that when I step back, there's an opportunity for others to step into that space. And what happened was an absolutely beautiful transition where our client team actually stepped into that space and started to run and progress on their own. And I felt so excited when I came back this morning and heard from them about all the progress that they'd made. It made me so happy because this is the crux of the work that I do in behavioral change. So when we're working with a change in behavior, often the approach is that we talk a lot about it, we explain it, we make it logical and academic, we talk about the reasons why, and of course, everybody buys into it. It's like, yes, we're going to do it. But then it actually happens where we have to do the change. We have to do the behavior. We have to implement it. And that's where there ends up being a lot of strife and pain. And this is where the person that I had been speaking to, and she was working through this implementation of the hospital information system. This is where she was feeling her pain, that pain of not being supported through the behavioral and process change. That's why connected change is different. We don't do change that way. We don't let people figure it out and make a lot of mistakes as they're going through. We actually work alongside individuals such that when we step back, they can step into the space seamlessly and without strife and without drama. And it feels empowering and confidence building to them. Where the other approach, which is typical of large changes, typically leaves individuals feeling demoralized, frustrated, and much more invested in going back into the old way because the benefits for them have been lost. When we're looking at change from an implementation lens, this is where training and learning by doing come together. So typically training is learn by listening or learn by seeing. And this only takes us so far, and especially with adults and adult learning models, with people with different learning styles, there's a whole body of theory around that. But learning by listening and learning by seeing only takes us so far. It's the learning by doing that actually helps us learn and adopt new behaviors. Here's the thing though, if we're left alone to figure out and adopt those behaviors on our own, we're going to make up our own ways of doing things. And that standardization that we might be seeking in order to gain the ROI of the new system or process that we're implementing, to capitalize on standardization, we're going to lose that. Because if everybody has to come up with their own way of doing it, then we're no further along than we were in the beginning. The best way that I've seen this done is having coaches available to help people during that very testy few days at the beginning of any implementation. So typically there is an orientation period where you talk about the system look and feel, what you're going to do differently. There are typically demos that are done, and then also some directed training in a sandbox environment. And this is learn by seeing and learn by listening. Then when the switch gets turned on and we are in implementation, this is where the coaching model happens. So when you're looking for good process or behavioral coaches, these are not typically your change champions. So obviously, with anyone in this type of role, you have to have a certain level of patience and interpersonal skills because it is a person-to-person type of role. That the key thing for a behavioral coach is that strong understanding of the process, what needs to be done, and also a skill and some skill with problem solving. So in the best implementation that I've ever done, we actually trained up people within the organization to act as on-the-ground coaches. And so on the first day and in the first week, when the new system went live, our coaches became what essentially we call super users. They were delegated as individuals who wanted to learn the system inside and out and really had a knack for it. They had an interest in it. And they were the behavioral coaches when we were in implementation. And their job was to sit alongside the people who were learning the system on the first day and help them through the first few times that they were doing their activity. And as, of course, the week goes on, it gets better and better and better. And people are able to adopt and learn, and they figure it out. And it's a lot easier if you have someone that you can work with in person beside you that can help you with that. And the key thing here is proximity and availability. This does not really work well in a virtual model. I will be 100% transparent here. One of the challenges that I did have was doing an implementation like this and of a very large global scale during the first phase of the pandemic. Many of the individuals we were working with were working from home. It made the coaching in this role extremely difficult. So, thinking about this going forward, preference is definitely in person with the team together. Because if you have people in proximity, the learning can magnify. You don't get that in a virtual environment unless you already have a very well-established virtual culture and you're devoting specific time for this learning acceleration and building. The learning coaches also play a significant role in also what I talked about earlier in this episode, where we coach people and we help people through that learning curve. But then the important part is that person has to step back and let the team go on their own. this is where we also hit another point of resistance. There are individuals who find implementation harder than others. And for these individuals, pulling back is going to feel very uncomfortable and difficult, and there will be a resistance that comes along with it. Truly, though, that coach role is a cyclical role. As updates are introduced, as further changes come along, those individuals will ramp up and ramp down as you need them to, as you move forward with new cycles, new implementations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because the truth is, when you're looking at technology, the innovation never stops, and therefore the implementation continues as well. So with this role, the key is also setting a timeline or a deadline on that role. And that is the role of leadership. It's not up to the individuals to say, I need to step back. Often they're in a peer-to-peer coaching situation, and so it's difficult for them to say that, especially because in some cases with this role, they may be coaching up to people who are senior to them, but in the coaching role, they're the knowledge or the subject matter expert. So it's really up to the sponsor to set that timeline and set that expectation, and then have those coaches pull back. So as I mentioned earlier in the episode where I talked about one of the individuals I spoke to this week about an implementation that was very, very stressful, a new hospital information system. This is where the coaching model really makes a huge difference and is able to accelerate the pace of change far beyond expectation, and especially with complex implementations like the one that my friend has been struggling with. So as you go forth with your planning and change implementation, this is an area where I'd encourage you to have good in-depth discussions with your sponsors and really think through how you can incorporate the traditional training pathways, how to make that more innovative, interactive, and modern, as well as have space and time devoted to training up these important behavioral coaches so that as we learn by doing, we can accelerate change. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, I invite you to like, rate, share, and subscribe because it helps others find us. Our music is Levity by Emily Clausen. Change Course can be found wherever you get your podcasts, and we have an accessible version with fully edited captions on YouTube. You can find the link to this version on www.charthouse.ca in the Change Course podcast show notes. While you're visiting us, sign up for the Change Navigator newsletter. We're launching shortly, and you'll get a monthly dispatch of all things change and hear about the upcoming launch of ConnectedChange.com. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late to change course.